Let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good.
And then today we're going to talk about why Memphis. What stands out here? Why invest in Memphis? If you listen to the show every single week, which I'm assuming everyone does, right? I mean, I would imagine you can't miss the show. So, but if you listen to everyone, you've noticed that we have done this show in the past. Why Memphis? It's been about a year, so we're going to revisit that topic today and give you some ideas of why invest in Memphis now. So let's dive right into that. Dan, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Dan Butler with CrestCore Realty. We're always happy to have him as a, I don't know that you're a guest anymore. You're here every week. So as a weekly contributor, here you go.
Yeah,
you like
weekly
that,
contributor,
right?
yeah.
Weekly contributor. So we're happy to have you here today. Dan, let's talk about Memphis and why. You mentioned that you had a phone call yesterday with an investor, and he asked this exact question. Put you on the spot here without going into our notes yet. What'd you tell him?
I told him I was doing a radio show this morning.
and to listen?
And to listen. He was an investor from New York, been investing in New York for about 40 years.
Okay.
And they were, they said it's about time to invest outside. I don't know the exact trigger, but...
Took him 40 years?
Yeah, that's right. Have, hundreds of units in New York City,
Yep.
in the city, where it's hard to...
Wow.
That's an appreciative play. It's not a cash flow play. And they're looking for cash flow and where to put some money. They're selling a couple buildings. And he put me on the spot in front of 4 or 5 people, said, why should I put my money here? Yeah. And I was like, great question. So let's dive right in.
I think, yeah, that's good. No, I think we definitely have some reasons. And the first one here that we have talks about.
You don't like my eyes?
No, Amber does.
Yeah, Amber loves it. Yeah.
Most charitable places in the city,
in the nation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Memphis is one of the most charitable places in the nation. Thousands of volunteers pouring into Memphis. Talk a little bit about, because I know you're involved with several community development programs. Talk a little bit about why we're so charitable, some of those programs, and then how that relates to investing.
Well, I mean, I think for me, high level, we've always had an issue with economic disparity in the city, and it's like the haves and the have-nots. And so I think that those that have been trying to figure out ways to help the have-nots, for lack of better words. And so there's a ton of nonprofits that we're associated with, that we're friends with, that are involved, and they get real deep in the city. Binghamton and 38126 and the FedEx Forum and Orange Mound and all those places. There's Fraser CDC. I mean, There's places like Advanced Memphis that I'm near and dear to my heart, where we're teaching people to you've been going down one path of drugs and crime and everything else. Hey, let's try to put that same type of energy into a positive path. Help them get a GED, help them get a job, help them get managerial skills, and try to get a decent wage that then can start providing for the family and have what we call generational change. So
you're instilling hope.
That's exactly that's right.
So what I've learned is, and where there's communities where there's no hope and there's no vision, it's a repetitive process of poverty, crime, drugs. Where if you're born into that, I mean, it's hard to think because I didn't come from a wealthy background, but I was fortunate enough not to be involved in that type of upbringing. But and we had hope.
Sure.
If you're in a situation where your parents or your guardians are either on drugs or they're behind bars or whatever a bad situation could be, if you aren't taught hope and a vision from an early age, then you think that that's the way of life, and it's just a repetitive process. So instilling hope in these younger generation people to know that, hey, there is a way to crawl out of this hole is huge.
Yeah, and I think that for an investor, from an investor standpoint, for the people that are 2,000 miles away or whatever looking at Memphis, for them to know that people that live in Memphis and have grown up here or moved here and been here for years, like, we truly care.
Yep.
And I'm not just going to my big thing about personal accountability, like, we own it.
Yep.
We have some issues. What are we doing about it? And so we are doing stuff about it. And that's where I get excited, just for people that invest in Memphis to help be part of that solution, is that we have a lot of activity going on that just helping to your point, just giving hope, giving ways a pathway out, and just because you have a felony, I saw somebody posted yesterday, like local companies that hire felons.
Yeah,
I mean it's hundreds, and I get that a lot when I go speak in the inner city. Like, I got a felony, well, I can't get a job. I'm like, no, we need to, we go back to our limited belief.
Yeah,
that limited belief segment we did, several months ago, where no, I've got a felony. What am I going to do about it? And so that's what we're trying to teach and try to,
Yeah. So some of these CDCs or outreach ministries, whether it be from a religion standpoint or just from a community service standpoint, some of them are actually, if they're not building homes, they're refurbishing homes. Yeah. So we're getting a lot of that. You mentioned Fraser Community Development Program. They're doing that in Fraser.
Yeah, they're buying them, fixing them up, eliminating blight. That's right.
Anybody else doing that? And to me, I'm trying to relate this to investors. So if I'm an investor and I'm thinking, hey, there are plenty of companies that are out there that are going in some of these challenged areas and are redoing, pockets. We have a turnkey, a friend of ours that's in Fraser that if he hadn't turned around half of Fraser, he's close to it.
Yeah, but it's funny we were on the same wavelength. He's been 38106 now. Our buddy Terry Kerr and his team, and people maybe give him a hard time about it or wonder why. But at the end of the day, he's taken a house that is dilapidated, has been run down, that nobody's going to be putting money in, and he's putting $20,000 into a house that some people might say is worth $20,000.
That's right.
But now it's got a new roof, new flooring, new HVAC, new cat. It's a brand new house
for a good home, for a good family,
for 38106. So that's exciting. I think you're seeing less and less blight throughout the city. I don't think we have as big an issue we had probably 10 years ago. So
from people like Terry and other companies that are doing this.
And with that, we'll talk about it in several pieces down in this radio show a little bit later of why that plays into why that's a good thing.
Okay. One of our next biggest things to me, and one of the topics I go to when people talk about Memphis and they talk about areas, are large corporations here. And of course in our notes the number one was FedEx. So when I was a kid it was Federal Express.
Yeah.
and now they've evolved into FedEx, and they've got FedEx Ground. And
tons of subsidiaries around FedEx.
It's really taken over our city. And what I mean by that is thousands and thousands of jobs. As you guys have heard me on the show before mention that 38118 is one of my favorite zip codes. 116 now is kind of bleeding over into my favorite category. So, and those two zip codes are just south of our airport. It's not just FedEx, but UPS has a big presence here, believe it or not. International Paper. You've got some big companies that have tons of employees. If you drive up and down Shelby Drive, which is, for those of you who don't know, rides right below, just south of our airport, east and west. There's warehouses everywhere. So the logistics companies that are here in Memphis that provide those, blue collar jobs that are tenants. We have plenty of those. They're coming out of our ears.
Yeah, and I went to a commercial, thing that Daily Memphian. I think it's called the Daily Memphian now. I kind of remember that.
It's not the Daily News.
It's not the Daily News. They kind of rebranded, but went to one of their seminars the week before last, and commercial industrial space for warehousing is like 6% vacant. The number is staggering, and the only thing you can find is like C grade. Like stuff that you probably just you may or may not want to put your distribution center in. So people are having to build new warehouses. It's which then creates more jobs in that area. So I think that that's huge to me, and a lot of those are feeders into either FedEx or we're right here on the 40. I don't know what you call that, belt line, or it takes it from all the way. I think you can get to California, can't you? From
40 goes all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Yeah, so it's a long stretch. So people like to jump on there, get on the river as well, Mississippi River, to ship their products. So. Yeah, Service Master just moved downtown.
That's right.
So
2,500 jobs, I think.
I think so. And so, I think how many millennial types are going to live downtown now and buy condos or live in apartments, or what I mean, or houses that are for rent downtown. So that's changing downtown. I was down there yesterday at my meeting, and I just kind of marveled looking around, like, this is a thriving. People are walking everywhere to either work or their house or to get something to eat, or I mean, it was everywhere.
So I've lived here my whole life, and I've never seen as many cranes downtown as we see right now.
Yeah.
It's a good sign. I mean, it's a good sign that there's development going on. The city's booming from a not just a skyline perspective, but I mean, that means jobs. If there's people coming in and spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a building in downtown Memphis, I mean, there's I'm never put myself in that category of these huge smart economists, but you know that if you're putting hundreds of millions of dollars into a building downtown, you have to see the future a little bit. You've got to know what's coming, that there's an uptick in Memphis. There's things that are happening and developing, and more jobs created. I mean, then it's just a trickle effect down from building buildings to jobs and to rent to houses, to investors and that sort of thing. So go ahead.
And one of our running buddies this morning, I need to find this article today, but he said that there's a proposed development for $950 million in that Danny Thomas Union. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, they were going to make it. They called it something. They were going to make Union. What is that?
It's Union Row.
They're calling it Union Row.
Which is interesting about that, because Douglas and I went to a wedding Sunday at the Peabody.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm driving, and you go through Midtown. It's thriving with the new Kroger and that new hotel is going at McLean and Union. And then you get past, I guess, Cleveland and the hospital, and just
it sinks.
It just kind of stinks. I mean, not sinks. It sinks to where there's really nothing going on. There's warehouse after warehouse vacant. Don's Upholstery has been there for 100 years, still there, but there's not much. I saw like a Elvis souvenir shop that's been closed for who knows how long. But
Baptist Hospital used to be right there.
Yeah.
And then it was a thriving area then. And when they took it out east, that area has not done anything since.
And I would
from a
think,
growth standpoint.
So $950 million mixed use with, housing, commercial, retail, all that stuff.
Yep.
That's going to affect uptown.
Yep.
And then just south of you, all that area, I guess that's 38126, maybe 106.
Mm-hmm.
That's just only going to make it better. So
those can be good rental areas now. You get off of Union South just a little bit. I mean, you got some pretty decent properties over there now.
So all that to say, between the charity and the corporations and just people pouring in. I mean, there's in St. Jude. That's another one I forgot. I think they have $1 billion they're spending over the next
that whole area. That
several years
is a remarkable thing as what they have done. St. Jude, Le Bonheur, and all that over there on that. What is that? The South Parkway is in Madison that runs right down through there. What road
I think
is that?
so.
Danny Thomas.
Danny Thomas. Yeah.
You used to not. I remember. To date back a little bit, 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago, you couldn't drive behind Le Bonheur and Danny in St. Jude. You didn't want to go back behind there. Those houses were
scary,
100 years old. The people that were living in them had no interest in safety or pride of living or ownership. It was terrible. They since went in. Several builders went in, completely demolished that. One of those whole areas. Building brand new homes, projects, and things like that. And then, they've just announced that they've got almost another $1 billion project coming over there. So these are just some of the highlights and things that we can point out to you guys to show you that, yes, there is still growth. Please feel free to Google a lot of this stuff. I mean, to get some of the better details. But I wanted to throw this out there to the listeners real quick. If you're listening and you're on the show's Facebook page, or you want to jump on there real quick, tell us why you would invest in Memphis. If you're an investor and you're holding property here in Memphis, which I know we've got a lot that listen, post on the show's Facebook page there why you invest in Memphis, why you think it's a good area, what is going well for you here in Memphis, and why you think it's a good idea to keep spending your money. We'd like to, for all the new people that listen that don't normally post, they can come back and read these comments of why other investors are listening. So if you're a regular, we've got several that are regular Spencers out there, I'm sure, listening. If you've got a buy and hold, if you're listening to the show now and you have rental property, I encourage you to go on the show's Facebook page and tell us why you choose Memphis. Yeah, all right, so let's dive a little bit further into this. Let's talk about history. I love the river, travel and product delivery. If you're not from here, you might not know anything about that, but we have got a huge barge system.
Yeah.
I am not going to know the technical words for this, but I do know that there is a huge.
It's a big boat.
It's a big, it sure has a big motor.
It's a big motor. Just go sell real estate.
Yeah. You can ski on it too. You know what I mean?
I had been on a bass boat on the Mississippi one time 15 years ago. I don't know what I was thinking, but
yeah, I don't either.
Had a big life jacket on and just slam in that water. And I was
man, there ain't no way you could get me on that river outside of a tugboat.
It was my first and last.
Yeah.
It was scary.
I have some friends that have been like, I've skied on that before. I'm like, bro, you don't have any idea that 4 feet deep, that's going 10, 12 miles an hour. It sucks you right in.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, you got the new bridge the walking bridge that actually, I was over in West Memphis the other day, and it connects.
Yep.
You can see where it connects several miles into Arkansas.
Yep.
And just you can rent a bike on either side, and you got the blues and jazz. You got Elvis. You got recording music. Like what is it? Stax and
Sun Studio,
and all that stuff. Some very famous stuff that just to me that plays off of just the culture and the history and just the uniqueness of Memphis.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, and in a lot of those areas too. I think we feed off of that as an energy as a city, right? I mean, we feed off our, a lot of these topics, I guess specifically, don't directly involve, investing and buy and hold real estate here in Memphis. But if you look at some of our culture and you look at some of the jobs that are here and kind of to understand, what you're investing in, what you're pouring your money into, I think it's important to know from a, I guess a 30,000 foot view down to see what all's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about downtown millennials. We've got top 4 in the U.S. here. What are you telling me?
Another.
So we got more millennials here?
One of the top 4 in the city for attracting millennials to come and work.
You mean one of the top 4 cities in the country?
Nation. Yeah.
To come here to Memphis to work. What job, do we have any idea what companies are bringing those jobs in?
I would think
FedEx, probably.
FedEx, International Paper. I mean, FedEx has got thousands of managerial jobs open right now.
Thousands?
Thousands. Yep. So they are on a hiring spree, just trying to fill their growth, and I think a lot of this has to do with IT.
Yeah.
So Service Master and those kind of places, hiring AutoZone, they're all growing. So
see, I didn't think about Service Master not coming in here. They're probably bringing in all kinds of young kids to come in here to work.
Yeah. So with that, that's why you see downtown converting. You got your breweries, you got your.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whiskey distillery. Remember that we went there a couple months ago for that meeting.
Yeah.
Where they're making whiskey and. But part of that is just. That was some meeting. Do you remember it?
Yeah. I slept through it.
I slept through it. That's right. Nah, but it's a destination place for dinner and for hanging out or wedding parties and those kind of things. So, I mean, you just got all kinds of stuff that's being recreated. Laughlin Yard,
all that stuff down there. It's a frothy IPA, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So I just think, it's converting all these old buildings that have been vacant for 50, 100 years.
Yep.
You got you're creating a destination. So I know some people that have second homes downtown, or condos
that live out in the county. I mean, we do have the Grizzlies. We've got a professional franchise here.
You can walk to the Grizzlies game. You have a condo downtown. You just walk to the Grizzlies. And
I do know some people that do that. Because the condos downtown are affordable. You can find them that are affordable, 150, 160 grand, which I know it sounds like a lot, but that's a good 1 or 2 bedroom, 1,000 square feet. You're not getting a ton of room, but that's not a bad price for a condo right downtown,
right.
Walking distance from Bill Street and restaurants and that sort of thing. So that's great. Downtown is booming and growing. This next topic we can spend a little time on, and it's about the rent ratio versus owners here. And this gets into a little bit more of the meat, I think.
Of why we can't get so much attention.
Yeah, why? Like all the stuff we've given you, the charitable stuff, the growth of millennials coming to the city, and
to me that just validates.
It does validate. It gives you
got the return side and like a return on investment, but this is like I think we spent the first half just validating. There's a support system
for those numbers, for those houses. That's right.
Yeah,
we are pulling this all together. So you've heard about charity. You've heard about our companies here, the economic reasons why this is a
culture and history.
Good place. Culture and history.
Yep.
So now here's some of the kind of,
the nuts and bolts.
The nuts and bolts of, why this is such a great place to invest your money in.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about, I know this is kind of, your area, you're keen on this, but talk about why, percentage of residents, homeowners versus tenants.
we go to a lot of conferences and have a lot of economic data thrown at us. And, on average, we hover in that 63, 64% home ownership nationwide average.
Mm-hmm.
So that means some places are going to be higher, right? 75%, 70%. And so
Yep.
we're actually on the flip side of that. We're on the lower side. So we're at 45% of home ownership in the city of Memphis.
That means there's more tenants.
There's more tenants.
For you mathematicians.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's a 20% delta, 20% difference in what we see Memphis versus a city of similar size or whatever. So you take 300,000 parcels, which give or take a few. I don't know. I hadn't seen the latest.
Just for this conversation.
That's 60,000 different houses or apartment units or whatever versus a similar size city that now is for rent.
That's an astonishing number.
It's
that you
huge.
can come here and and if you go to a similar place, I guess the way you're laying this out is go to a similar place for size,
Mm-hmm.
economic similarities. We've got 60,000 more opportunities for an investment here than in another city.
Correct.
Yeah, that's an amazing number in itself right there.
Oh, it's
60,000 more houses to invest in versus somewhere else.
And I can't buy all of them.
No, you can try though.
That leaves some for the rest of us. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you hit it home. I think that just leaves so much opportunity for all of us.
Yep.
And that mentality we all had, especially when we first start, you think you have the secret sauce and you're doing something different from everybody else. And at the end of the day, it's just being, passionate and getting after it and, cast your net wide and finding those deals.
Yeah.
Because they're always going to be there. I mean, just like when we thought listings were going, we're hurting on listings.
2 weeks ago, we were at 73. To this morning, we were back up to 95.
Yeah, almost to 100. You'll probably be at 100 by the end of the month and going into the end of the year, which is huge.
Yeah.
So people are always selling and people are always buying. And it's because I don't have the math on this, but statistically, there's always going to be a percentage that is moving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In and out of the system. And so that's why it's 60,000 not even the number. It's really 150-something thousand that's the number of rental units in Memphis. Total. And so...
Well, when Wendy comes in here, she talks about our transactions are almost 50-50. Investment deals versus...
And that's why.
Versus
it matches
homeowners.
this.
It matches the data we're giving you right now, which we're giving you, numbers that we've found, but Wendy's, she's using...
Actual
facts,
sales. She goes and pulls it.
Transactions. Yep. This is Wendy Greenlaw with Chandler Reports, guys. She's been on the show plenty of times. You can go back and check her out, chandlerreports.com.
Yeah.
Great little plug for her. She really helps us out. But
absolutely.
Yeah, that number alone sets us apart from, I guess, the Little Rocks and other cities that are similar to Memphis. I think we're a little bigger than Little Rock, but you got my point.
Yeah.
You just have way more opportunity here. It's something else, too. A lot of people are like, well, Dean, why do you have so many of those investment listings? I've said that twice a show, so I want to make sure there's always somebody retiring.
Oh, yeah.
We got that 10-house package from a guy who's retiring. He's just been, he's almost 70. It's like, Dean, I can't, I had to FedEx him the listing agreement. So which is very strange.
Couldn't DocuSign.
He couldn't do any of our dot loop.
But that's fine.
Whatever
we're helping serve a purpose, helping somebody, move on. And some people want to change from houses to one commercial unit when they're getting, in phases of life. There's all kinds of reasons why people are selling their investment properties. So,
rent ratio.
That's
next, right?
That's next. Yep.
Now we're talking about rent ratio.
Now we are. Yeah.
Okay,
here
good.
we go.
Got lost in my notes here.
So basically, rent ratio in Memphis is one of the strongest. It's always in the top 10, probably top 5 in the whole nation as far as the price you pay for a house versus the rent you get for that house. And so, a typical house for us might be $50,000, $800 rent, and that's versus another city like Greenville, where I'm from. We've used that example so many times, but that's $80,000 for that $800 rent. So
just nuts.
The gross yield is drastically different. One's, closer to 20, one's down towards 12. And your net yield's probably, 60% of that, 50, 60% of that. So the return on investment is just totally different. So, that's why the guy from New York's here. That's why those guys from LA.
This is the meat of why everybody's here.
That's correct.
We tell you guys about barbecue and this history and the city and jobs, but if this information wasn't what it was, you guys wouldn't be here. So yes, you can get $60,000 house will get you $800 in rent, $825. Yeah. I mean, and there's several different locations. That not just, I don't want investors to think, well, that must be a 3-block radius. No, I've got 4 or 5 zip codes I can get that in.
A big part of the city. I mean, then you got Detroit, Birmingham, St. Louis, Indianapolis. There's other markets similar to ours, Cleveland. Mm-hmm. We kind of analyzed those cities several months ago, but Memphis holds strong with all of those. And so I hope that, with what we talked about before, and then also, the percent renters. What I don't know is the percent renters in those other cities. We should look into that and see, report back. But, that whole combo just makes it where it's a decent investment for Memphis. So,
all right. So rent ratio, we know that's, we could do a whole show on rent ratio, to be honest with you. I mean, we could sit here and dissect, house per house, but the percentage of residents that rent to own in Memphis is very good. We've talked about 160-something thousand rental properties that we've got here in Memphis. And then our rent ratio is so good. So next, Memphis companies. I'm always hesitant to come on. We don't ever come on the show and talk about us a ton. Mm-hmm.
That's not the point.
It's not really the point of the show. When I started doing, we're on 2.5 years, by the way. When I started doing this, I thought, let me back up. So I thought, if I'm listening to the show, what do I want to hear? Mm-hmm. I do not want to hear an agent or anyone come on the show and spout out why they're the greatest at what they do for an hour. You might hear that one time, and you're going to tune out of that because eventually nobody cares. They're either in the market or they're not. So we never made this show about us. We'll throw in a show here and there to tell you what we can provide for you, but in general terms, we want to give you what's best for you from a build your team investment standpoint, no matter where you're at. Mm-hmm. And we just have never come on here to put ourselves over. At the same clip or the same conversation, I've never come on here and promoted really any other company because we are in the business of selling real estate and buying real estate ourselves. But I think it's important, and there's some value in mentioning some of our not partners, but some of our colleagues that provide a different product or the same product, even just so you can know that this isn't just CrestCore Realty and Dean and Dan and the brokerage from CrestCore out there that's just really running the whole city. There's a lot of people that contribute to the success of the investment
process,
world, process and all that.
I think when I first started 2001, there's only a handful of companies almost doing it paper and pencil, not very many systems. But now you fast forward through these several years of just, the economic, the money's been put back into these rentals and how many people are investing out of state. People had to figure out how to help the out of state investors because that's where the majority of the money was coming from.
That's right.
And so you got people like, our buddy Alex Craig, Memphis Turnkey, CB Properties, Mid-South Home Buyers, with Terry Kerr, us. We've all had to figure out systems, processes, software, technology, that just really can help our investors. And I mentioned those guys personally because I have personal relationships with them, and I know they run a tight ship, and I just know that we're trying to better the city. It's not just about making money. I think there's a misnomer it drives me crazy that we're just in it to make a ton of money. Well, no, we got to service that tenant. We got to take care of things.
Oh, it's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act. You're trying to help an investor get a return, and what they don't see is all the infrastructure that you have to go and provide both that service to your client and that service to your tenant. If you're not a tenant advocate, you're not going to make it in this business.
No way.
It's
because tenants are smart.
Tenants are smart. I mean, I met with a guy last week, and his comment to me was he was talking about different management companies and tenants. And he's like, man, I hear more about blah, 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 this company, about not renting from them. And thankfully, he's like, I don't hear too much, negative about us.
Yeah.
We can't be perfect.
No.
We'll never be perfect, but we strive for perfection. And I think the other companies I mentioned, with Alex and Terry and those guys, I think we just all are trying to do the right thing.
They have a different business model. They provide a different product.
Yeah, they're turnkey, we're Burr.
Yeah.
So it's totally different, but we're all same purpose as far as serving clients, serving owners to the best of our ability. And every day is going to be different. in a change, growth, improvement standpoint. So that's why, to me, that's why Memphis is big, because there's several of us, a handful of us that are really trying to drive and make a change across Memphis on the way we run things and the way we try to handle business. And again, none of us are perfect. Never will be.
Yeah,
that's part of just life.
I talked to an investor yesterday, and we were talking about management, and I told him, I was giving him kind of my talk about how when you buy from me at CrestCore, that it's not just like your residential agent, where they close on the deal, they give you a bottle of wine and a fruit basket, and they send you a calendar once a year with their name on it. This is a little bit different. If let's say you buy homes through us and we manage, I'd love to tell you that nothing's going to ever happen in management. I'd love to be able to say, hey, you're never going to have one issue.
Right.
That'd be just a bold-faced lie. It's going to happen. We manage 2,500 houses. There is something along the lines that's going to happen. You're going to get accidentally charged for something. You're going to have something happen. It just happens.
We got winterization coming up.
We're about to have a whole issue.
We're about to whole issue with frozen pipes, and
so it's coming.
We are trying to be proactive and advocates and try to brace for that. But there are going to be expenses that pop up in the next 2 months because of Mother Nature.
Yeah. So how do you handle that? To me, has always been my message. That's why I'm always partnering with my clients. As soon as we close on 2 or 3 houses or whatever your goal is right away, I'm in the same building with management. If there's something that's not right, email me, call me, whatever it is, and we'll stick with you to help do that. It's a balancing act between tenants and owners. If you got a real happy tenant, you likely got an unhappy owner. Yep. And if your owner is thrilled and everything's perfect, then in all likelihood, there's some tenants that are not happy that are in his homes. So it is a balancing act. So I'm happy to mention Memphis Turnkey and Alex Craig, Mid-South Home Buyers and Terry Kerr. Those are guys that have similar moral compasses that we do. They, to use one of your words,
moral compass.
That they have similar kind of structures in their business that we do, that they're generally trying to help people. Yeah,
and I think I'll give a shout out to Verna. She's an advocate of our show.
She listens all the time. Yeah,
she partners with us with management, and she knows we're not perfect, but she knows we're going to answer that phone and that email and take care of her clients. And
she's had plenty of buyers come and buy our listings before too.
Absolutely. So we're just looking for win-wins, and I think when we, the listeners need to understand that there's a ton of us that are in it for win-wins in the city, not just CrestCore, but others. So I think that should give people, I have this conversation quite often, locking in on contracts and this kind of stuff. I'm like, we don't want to lock in on contracts. Like, it's got to be a win-win. And so we might not be perfect fits for everybody. And so that's okay. But the whole point of this little piece of this segment is like, there's plenty of opportunity. There's plenty of good people. You just got to find the
no matter what your product is,
what you're trying to do. So anyway, I think that's all good stuff. So
I'm happy to bring this show, to our listeners. I'm happy to discuss these topics. I think that it's valuable to them versus just coming on here and us telling you about CrestCore or whatever it may be. Memphis in a whole, great place to invest. We're as strong as we've ever been.
It's cash flow city.
So
rents don't decline.
That's right.
We're going places. So
thanks for being on the show today, man.
Thanks for having me.